The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council stretched high above the gathered representatives, its transparent walls showing the endless stars beyond. Inside, 47 different alien species sat in their designated areas, each group looking completely different from the others. Some had multiple arms, others had scales or fur, and a few glowed with their own inner light. At the human section, Ambassador Kim Hyun sat alone at a small table. He was younger than most ambassadors, maybe 40 years old, with short black hair and a quiet face that never showed much emotion. The other aliens had gotten used to him over the past few months. They thought he was just another young diplomat who didn't understand how things really worked in space. The air buzzed with strange sounds as different species talked to each other in their own languages. Some clicked, others hummed, and a few made sounds like wind blowing through metal tubes. Translator devices helped everyone understand each other, but Kim Hyun had learned to read the body language of many species. Right now most of them looked bored. Chancellor Vextar stood up at the center podium. He looked like a giant insect with green and gold skin that reflected the light. His 4 arms moved as he talked, and his large eyes could look in different directions at the same time. He had been leading the council for over 200 years and everyone respected him. "We gather today to discuss the continued problems with the Keltharian Empire," Vextar announced, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "They have attacked 3 more colonies on the outer rim. Thousands of innocent beings have been taken as slaves." Kim Hyun watched as the other delegates shifted in their seats. Some made disapproving sounds, others just looked at their datapads. The Keltharians sat in the far corner of the chamber, looking like massive lizards wearing expensive clothes. They seemed completely unbothered by the accusations. "This is the 4th time this year," continued Vextar. "We have sent formal complaints. We have imposed trade restrictions. Yet they continue to ignore our peaceful efforts to resolve this situation." An alien with blue skin and tentacles for arms raised one appendage. "Perhaps we should form another committee to study the problem," she suggested. Several other delegates nodded in agreement. Kim Hyun almost smiled. In the 6 months since Earth had joined the Galactic Council, he had attended dozens of meetings just like this one. The same problems, the same weak responses, the same results. Nothing ever changed. "There is another matter," Vextar said, his insect-like head turning toward the human section. "The research station at Kepler 442 has been destroyed. Ambassador Kim, your people have suffered losses as well." Kim Hyun felt his chest tighten. He had received the report just 3 hours ago. The Kepler station had been studying peaceful plant life on a distant world when Keltharian ships had appeared without warning. They had demanded the humans surrender the station. When the scientists refused, the Keltharians had simply destroyed it. 1,700 humans were killed, Vextar continued, including many families with children. The Council extends its sympathies to Earth and offers our standard reparation package. Around the chamber, delegates nodded solemnly. The standard package meant formal apologies, promises to investigate, and maybe some trade benefits that would take years to actually help anyone. Kim Hyun had seen the same offer made to dozens of other species whose people had been killed or enslaved. The Keltharian delegate, a creature the size of a small building with teeth like daggers, made a sound that might have been laughter. "Accidents happen in space," he rumbled. "Humans should not build stations in dangerous areas." Several other delegates looked uncomfortable, but none of them said anything. The Keltharians were too powerful, too important to the galactic economy. Better to keep the peace than start a real fight. Kim Hyun stood up slowly. The chamber grew quiet as all eyes turned to him. Most of the aliens had never heard him speak during these formal sessions. He usually just listened and took notes. "Chancellor," Kim Hyun said, his voice calm and steady, "Earth thanks the Council for its concern. However, we must respectfully decline your generous offer." Whispers started immediately. Several delegates leaned forward, curious about what the young human might say next. This was unexpected. "Ambassador," Vextar said carefully, "perhaps you need time to consider. The loss of so many of your people must be very painful. Our procedures have worked for thousands of years to maintain peace in the galaxy." "We understand your procedures perfectly," Kim Hyun replied. "File complaints. Form committees. Impose trade restrictions that take months to implement while more innocent beings die. We have watched this process for 6 months now." The Keltharian delegate made that laughing sound again. "What else would primitive humans do? Challenge the natural order of things." Kim Hyun looked directly at the massive reptilian creature. His expression never changed, but something in his eyes made the alien stop laughing. "We choose a different path," Kim Hyun said simply. He gathered his data pad and small bag, moving with the same calm efficiency he had shown since arriving. As he walked toward the exit, conversations erupted throughout the chamber. Some delegates seemed confused, others appeared worried, and a few looked almost excited. "Ambassador," Vextar called after him. "Surely you cannot mean to take action outside council protocols. That would be most unwise." Kim Hyun paused at the door and turned back. For the first time since joining the council, he smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. 1,700 of our people are dead, Chancellor. We will handle this matter ourselves. As the door closed behind him, the chamber fell into stunned silence. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a command center that most humans never knew existed, General Lee Min stood before a wall of glowing screens. The room was huge, filled with computers and displays showing every corner of human space. Officers in dark blue uniforms moved between the workstations, their faces serious and focused. Lee Min was a small woman with gray hair pulled back tight, but when she spoke, everyone listened. She had spent 30 years in Earth's military, fighting in wars that the peaceful aliens of the galaxy could never imagine. Her eyes were sharp and cold, like those of a hunting wolf. "General," called Colonel Park Jin from across the room. He was a tall man with scars on his hands from his time as a combat engineer. "We have final confirmation from the investigation team at Kepler 442. Lee Min turned to face him. Around the command center, conversations stopped as other officers waited to hear the official report. 1,700 confirmed dead, Park Jin continued, his voice steady but angry. Men, women, and children. The research families had been living there for 3 years studying plant life. The Keltharians gave them no warning. They demanded surrender, and when our people refused, they destroyed the entire station. Lee Min nodded slowly. She had seen the preliminary reports, but hearing the final numbers made her jaw tighten. These were not soldiers who had died in battle. These were scientists, teachers, farmers, and their families. "Time to full mobilization?" she asked. Park Jin checked his data pad. 73 hours, General. All fleet commanders have confirmed readiness. The shipyards began conversion 6 hours ago. Above Earth's atmosphere, in the vast construction yards that orbited the planet and moon, something remarkable was happening. For decades, these facilities had built exploration ships, cargo vessels, and peaceful research platforms. The workers had grown used to creating vessels designed for discovery and trade. But now everything changed. Massive construction bays that had been assembling scientific ships suddenly stopped their work. Robot arms began tearing apart half-finished hulls, recycling the materials for new purposes. Within hours, the peaceful construction yards transformed into something the galaxy had never seen before, a war machine capable of building fleets faster than any civilization in known space. The new ships taking shape looked nothing like the elegant vessels other species preferred. Where alien ships curved gracefully like works of art, human warships were straight lines and sharp angles. Every surface served a purpose. Every weapon was positioned for maximum damage. Every armor plate was designed to keep the ship fighting even when badly damaged. Commander Yang Ho stood in one of the lunar construction bays, watching as a new destroyer took shape before his eyes. "How long for this one?" he asked the chief engineer. 18 hours for basic completion, the engineer replied. Another 6 for weapons installation. These new designs are incredible, sir. I've never seen ships that could be built so quickly. Yang Ho nodded. Other species took months or years to build their warships, crafting them like beautiful sculptures. Humans built theirs like tools, efficient, deadly, and fast to produce. Far from Earth, Admiral Cho Sung walked through the corridors of his flagship, the Incheon. The ship was one of humanity's newest designs, built in secret over the past 2 years. From the outside it looked like a large research vessel. Inside it carried enough firepower to destroy an entire fleet. Cho Sung was an older man with calm eyes and careful movements. He had studied the military history of every species in the galaxy, learning their tactics and strategies. What he discovered was that most aliens had forgotten how to fight real wars. They had grown soft through centuries of peace and diplomacy. "Admiral," Commander Kang Yu approached with a data pad in his hands. Kang Yu was young for such an important position, but he had graduated at the top of his class from Earth's War College. "Final fleet status report, sir." Cho Sung took the pad and reviewed the numbers. 43 battle groups, each containing ships designed for specific purposes. Fast attack vessels, heavy bombardment cruisers, electronic warfare platforms, and specialized ships that could operate behind enemy lines. "Impressive," Cho Sung said. "And the Keltharian positions? We have confirmed locations for all their major fleet concentrations. Kangyu replied. 17 core systems, each heavily defended. They have approximately 800 combat vessels spread across their territory. Their response to our mobilization? Kangyu almost smiled. They're not responding at all, sir. Our intelligence sources suggest they don't consider Earth a legitimate military threat. They think we're just angry and will calm down once the Galactic Council offers us more trade benefits. Cho Sung walked to the bridge windows and looked out at the stars. In the distance he could see other human ships moving into formation. Each one represented years of careful planning and preparation. Earth's leaders had always known this day might come, when humanity would need to fight for its place in the galaxy. Sir, Kangyu continued, some of the other fleet commanders are asking about rules of engagement. The Galactic Council has very specific laws about civilized warfare. The Galactic Council, Cho Sung said quietly, has never fought a war against humans. They follow rules designed for species that evolved on peaceful worlds, creatures that see warfare as an unfortunate necessity to be conducted with minimum damage. He turned back to his young commander. We evolved differently, Kangyu. Every creature on Earth spent millions of years learning to survive by being better predators than everything else. We didn't just learn to fight, we learned to win completely. What are your orders, sir? Cho Sung smiled, but it was not a kind expression. Signal all fleet commanders. We attack in 60 hours. No warnings, no demands for surrender, no mercy for those who kill civilians. The Keltharians want to learn what humans do to enemies. They will. Supreme Commander Zarthek was a massive creature, even by Keltharian standards. His scaled body stood nearly 3 meters tall, with arms thick as tree trunks and claws that could tear through metal. He had ruled the Keltharian military for over 300 years, conquering dozens of worlds and enslaving millions of beings. Today he sat in his command center planning the invasion of 2 more peaceful colonies. The war room was enormous, filled with holographic displays showing all 17 core systems of the Keltharian Empire. Red dots marked their military bases, blue dots showed their fleets, and green dots indicated slave colonies that provided workers for their expanding territory. Everything was perfectly organized, just as it had been for centuries. The humans are still crying to their Galactic Council, laughed General Kethvar, Zarthek's second-in-command. Our spies report they filed another formal complaint about the research station we destroyed. Other Keltharian officers made rumbling sounds of amusement. The idea that the small, weak humans might actually fight back was ridiculous. Earth had only been in space for a few hundred years, while the Keltharian Empire had controlled this region of the galaxy for millennia. Perhaps we should take a few human colonies next, suggested Admiral Mordok. Their panic would be amusing to watch. Zarthek was about to respond when something strange happened. Every display screen in the war room went completely black. The lights flickered once, then returned to normal, but all their communication systems had gone silent. What is happening? Zarthek demanded. The technicians frantically worked at their stations, pressing buttons and checking connections. For 30 seconds the massive war room was eerily quiet. Then, suddenly, alarms began screaming from every system at once. The main display flickered back to life, but instead of showing their organized fleet positions, it showed empty space. Red warning symbols flashed everywhere, indicating destroyed or missing ships. Report. Zarthek roared, his voice echoing through the chamber. Communications Officer Veltar stared at his screens in shock. His claws trembled as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. Sir. We're receiving emergency signals from all systems. Fleet Command reports. They report total losses. Impossible, General Kethvar snarled. Our fleets are the strongest in this sector. What enemy could? He was interrupted by another officer who stumbled toward them, his usually proud bearing replaced by confusion and fear. Commanders, I have reports from the outer systems. The 3rd Fleet, the 7th Fleet, the 12th Fleet, all gone. Destroyed simultaneously. Zarthek felt something he had not experienced in 3 centuries of conquest, genuine surprise. How many ships lost? All of them, sir, the officer whispered. Every patrol vessel, every battle cruiser, every orbital defense platform. In 17 systems at exactly the same moment. The war room fell silent except for the continuing alarm sounds. Zarthek looked at the tactical display, trying to understand what had happened. His empire's military strength had vanished in minutes. Who attacked us? He demanded. Before anyone could answer, the main communication screen activated. A human face appeared, not young like their ambassador at the Galactic Council, but older, with gray hair and cold, calculating eyes. Behind the human, Through what appeared to be a ship's window, Keltharian vessels burned in space. "People of the Keltharian Empire," the human said in a calm, emotionless voice. "I am Admiral Cho Sung of the Earth Defense Force. 3 days ago, you murdered 1,700 human civilians at our research station. Today your military has been completely destroyed." Zarthek stared at the screen, unable to process what he was hearing. A human admiral? Earth had no military that could threaten a powerful empire like theirs. "This was not a battle," Cho Sung continued. "This was an execution. We have been watching you for months, mapping every ship, every base, every weapon. We know where you keep your slaves, where you hide your stolen resources, and where your leaders live." The admiral paused, and for a moment the only sound was the crackling of burning Keltharian ships in the background. "You have 24 hours to release every slave in your territory and surrender unconditionally. Your military no longer exists. Your orbital defenses are gone. Your ability to wage war has been permanently eliminated." General Kethvar found his voice first. "This is impossible. How did you coordinate attacks across 17 systems simultaneously? No species has that capability." Cho Sung's expression did not change. "You assumed we were like other species in the galaxy. You were wrong. We do not fight wars the way your Galactic Council does, with warnings and negotiations and careful rules. We fight to win, completely and permanently. What do you want?" Zarthek demanded, though his voice had lost its usual commanding tone. "Justice for our dead," the admiral replied. "Freedom for your slaves. And assurance that you will never again threaten peaceful civilizations. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact." The transmission ended, leaving the Keltharian command center in stunned silence. On the screens around them, reports continued to arrive from across their empire. Every military asset was gone. Centuries of conquest and expansion had been undone in less than an hour. Communications Officer Veltar looked up from his station with fear in his eyes. "Sir, we're receiving messages from slave colonies throughout our territory. They're saying human ships are already there, offering protection and transport to freedom." "How?" whispered General Kethvar. "How did they move so fast? How did they know everything?" For the first time in 300 years of military command, Supreme Commander Zarthek had no answer. The great crystalline chambers of the Galactic Council had never seen chaos like this before. For thousands of years, the meetings had followed the same peaceful pattern: polite discussions, careful debates, and slow decisions that satisfied everyone. Today that ancient calm was completely destroyed. Ambassador Kim Hyun walked through the entrance doors and immediately noticed the difference. Instead of the usual quiet conversations, delegates were shouting at each other in dozens of different languages. Some species that had been allies for centuries were now arguing loudly. Others huddled in small groups, whispering with fear in their voices. The Zephyrian delegation, tall blue beings with 4 arms, were waving frantically at a group of crystalline Altarians. The insect-like Vorthak were clicking their mandibles in distress while the plant-based Sylvans rustled their leaves nervously. Even the usually peaceful cetaceans were making deep, worried sounds through their translation devices. Kim Hyun took his seat at the human section, just as he had done dozens of times before. But this time, every eye in the chamber turned to watch him. The conversation stopped. The great dome fell silent except for the sound of nervous breathing from 46 different species. Chancellor Vextar stood at his podium, but his usually perfect posture was gone. His insect-like body trembled slightly, and his 4 arms moved in agitated gestures. The great leader who had guided the council for 2 centuries looked older and more tired than Kim Hyun had ever seen him. "Ambassador Kim," Vextar's voice cracked slightly. "What has your species done?" Kim Hyun remained seated, his hands folded calmly on the table in front of him. "We eliminated a threat to peaceful civilizations," he said in the same quiet tone he had always used. The response was immediate. Delegates began shouting in multiple languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up with the flood of angry and frightened words. "You destroyed an entire star empire," screamed the Turellian ambassador, a being that looked like a giant butterfly. "In less than 1 week." "The Keltharian military," added a vegan representative, his green skin pale with shock. 800 warships, dozens of space stations, centuries of military construction, all gone in 47 minutes. Vextar raised all 4 arms for silence. When the chamber quieted, his multifaceted eyes focused on Kim Hyun with something between fear and fascination. "You used weapons we have never seen," the Chancellor said slowly. "Tactics that violate every convention of civilized warfare. Ships that can coordinate attacks across 17 star systems simultaneously. How is this possible? Kim Hyun stood up slowly. Around him, dozens of alien species leaned back slightly, as if afraid to be too close to him. It was a reaction he had never seen before in all his months at the council. Civilized. Kim Hyun repeated, his voice still calm but with a hard edge that made several delegates shiver. You call it civilized to file complaints while innocent beings die? To form committees while children are sold into slavery? To impose trade sanctions that take months to approve while entire worlds suffer? The crystalline Altarian delegate spoke up, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. But Ambassador, the complete destruction of their military capability, leaving their worlds completely defenseless. It's unprecedented in galactic history. They remain alive, Kim Hyun pointed out. Every Keltharian civilian is unharmed. Their cities stand intact. Their families are safe. The only thing we destroyed was their ability to harm others. But what about their right to defend themselves? Asked a reptilian Saurian delegate. Kim Hyun's eyes grew cold. What about the right of their slaves to freedom? What about the right of peaceful colonies to exist without fear? The Keltharians had 300 years to choose a different path. They chose conquest and slavery instead. A small, furry being from the Ursine Confederacy stood up on shaking legs. What you did, it changes everything. For millennia, we have solved conflicts through discussion and compromise. You solved it through total warfare. Your discussion and compromise, Kim Hyun replied, allowed the Keltharians to enslave millions of beings over 3 centuries. Our total warfare freed every slave in their empire in less than a week. Which method actually helped the innocent? The chamber fell silent again. Many delegates looked uncomfortable because they knew the human was right. The council's peaceful methods had failed to stop the Keltharians, just as they had failed to stop dozens of other aggressive species over the centuries. Chancellor Vextar's voice was barely a whisper. And if other species refuse to accept this new precedent? What if they see Earth's actions as a threat to the galactic order? Kim Hyun looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from species that had been conquering and enslaving others for thousands of years. Some looked away quickly. Others stared back with mixtures of fear and anger. Then they will learn what the Keltharians learned, he said simply. Earth does not negotiate with species that target civilians. We do not trade with those who keep slaves. We do not coexist peacefully with aggressors who threaten innocent lives. He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. We are not conquerors. We want no territory, no tribute, no submission. But we will not allow peaceful beings to suffer while this council debates and forms committees. Any species that chooses to harm innocents will face the same response the Keltharians faced. The young human ambassador gathered his materials and walked toward the exit, just as he had done a week ago. But this time no one laughed. No one whispered about primitive humans learning harsh lessons. This time, they watched in absolute silence as Earth's representative left the chamber, carrying with him the knowledge that the galaxy had changed forever. 6 months had passed since the Keltharian Empire fell, and the galaxy looked completely different than it had before. Changes that no one thought possible were happening everywhere, as if the destruction of one aggressive species had awakened something peaceful in all the others. Ambassador Kim Hyun walked slowly through the corridors of the Galactic Council station, carrying his usual data pad and wearing the same simple black uniform he had always worn. But everything around him had changed. When he passed groups of alien delegates, their conversations would stop. Not because they hated him, but because they were still trying to understand what humanity had done to their ancient galaxy. Some species looked at him with respect. Others watched with careful wariness. A few seemed almost grateful, though they would never say so out loud. The fear was still there too, but it was a different kind of fear than before. It was the fear that kept aggressive species awake at night, wondering if they might be next. Ambassador, called Lieutenant Hanso, hurrying to catch up with Kim Hyun. Hanso was a young woman who had been assigned as his aide 3 months ago. She carried a thick stack of reports that seemed to grow larger every day. What news today? Kim Hyun asked as they walked toward his office. The Torvin Syndicate has just released their remaining slave populations, Hanso reported, checking her data pad. They announced it this morning across all their worlds. That makes 37 species that have voluntarily ended slavery practices since what they're calling the Keltharian incident. Kim Hyun nodded but was not surprised. The Torvin had been one of the worst slavers in the galaxy, capturing beings from peaceful worlds and selling them to mining operations. For them to voluntarily free their slaves meant the message had been received clearly. Any new territorial disputes? He asked. Hanso smiled, which was still unusual when discussing galactic politics. Actually, sir, we're seeing the opposite. The Vegan Federation and the Procyon Alliance just signed a mutual development pact for the Rigel system resources they've been fighting over for 2 centuries. They're going to work together instead of competing. They entered Kim Hyun's office, a simple room with basic furniture and a large window that looked out at the space station's central hub. Through the transparent metal, he could see hundreds of ships from dozens of different species moving peacefully through the traffic lanes. Cargo vessels, passenger transports, scientific expeditions, and diplomatic shuttles all shared the same space without conflict. What made Kim Hyun pause was the sight of small Earth patrol ships moving quietly among the alien vessels. They were not large or threatening ships, just simple craft with small crews who watched over the peaceful traffic. But everyone in the galaxy now knew what those ships represented. On his desk, the daily intelligence reports were stacked neatly. Kim Hyun picked up the first one and began reading. Every day brought more news of changes across the galaxy that would have been impossible just months ago. The Draknari Imperium had converted their entire war fleet into exploration vessels and medical ships. The Zephyrian warlords were funding schools on worlds they had previously raided. The Savage Claws, a pirate organization that had terrorized trade routes for decades, had simply disbanded and disappeared. "Sir," Hanso said quietly, "I've been getting questions from other council staff. Some of the alien delegates want to know, do we plan to expand our territory? Are we going to start making demands of other species?" Kim Hyun set down the report and looked out the window again. A group of young beings from 6 different species were playing together in the station's common recreation area. Their laughter could be heard even through the office walls. Children who would grow up in a galaxy where aggressive war was no longer profitable. "They don't understand us yet," Kim Hyun said thoughtfully. "For thousands of years, every powerful species in the galaxy has used their strength to take things from others. Territory, resources, slaves, tribute. They assume we must want the same things. But we don't," Hanso observed. "No, we don't. We proved something to the galaxy that they had never seen before, a species that became powerful enough to guarantee peace, not to conquer others." A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Kim Hyun activated his communication screen and saw that it was another request to join what the galaxy had started calling the Human Doctrine. This one came from the Stellar Commonwealth, a group of peaceful trading worlds that wanted protection from aggressive neighbors. The Human Doctrine was simple. Any species that signed it agreed that slavery and unprovoked attacks on civilians would result in immediate military response from Earth. Not negotiation, not committees, not trade sanctions. Military response that would completely eliminate the aggressor's ability to wage war. Already, 43 species had signed the agreement. More requests arrived every day. "The galaxy is safer today than it's been in thousands of years," Kim Hyun said as he approved the Commonwealth's request. "Not because we're the strongest species, but because everyone now knows the cost of choosing violence over peace." Hanso looked puzzled. "But sir, we are the strongest species now, aren't we? After what we did to the Keltharians." Kim Hyun smiled, the same calm expression he had worn in the council chambers 6 months ago. "Strength isn't just about having the most powerful weapons, Hanso. Real strength is having the power to end conflicts permanently, and choosing to use that power only to protect innocent lives." Outside his window, a human patrol ship drifted quietly past the station, its crew watching over the peaceful traffic lanes. In the distance, alien children played games their parents had never been allowed to play, in a galaxy where aggression was no longer rewarded. The galaxy had learned that humanity was something new, a species that had spent millions of years perfecting warfare, only to use that knowledge to guarantee peace.